Hey guys, I'm back. Me and the boys are enjoying some time outside, and Tato's running around doing his Tato thing. So getting back to this series about rescue knives, today we're going to talk about kind of one of the not so much talked about rescue knives out there, the Victorinox rescue tool. So basically it's a Swiss Army knife rescue tool. I personally don't own one. I had a friend who owns one and let me borrow it for the video. So you remember, by the way, there's not going to be any shout outs or any douche canoes or anything on this one, guys. We're going to get right into it. So remember last time we talked about the Gerber rescue knife, and we kind of looked at the virtues, the features, a little bit about what makes this, a good knife, some of the advantages, drawbacks, stuff like that. It's a kind of a very different tool than the Victorinox tool. So I had watched some videos online. Hey, Tato. I had done some research on this. Grabbed this from my friend, started to mess with it a little bit, and then I made a horrible discovery. I didn't realize it, but there is a huge market, because this is a fairly expensive knife. This will run you about 80 bucks, brand new. And I had to be the bearer of such bad news to tell him that the Victorinox rescue tool that he loves so much, and he does love this knife and swears by it, he got himself a counterfeit. Yeah. And if you don't know what to look for, this is hard to tell. So we're going to look at this knife because it's the only one I have to talk about the features of the Swiss Army rescue knife, the tools it comes in. But I'm also going to give you just a heads up on how you can spot kind of the features of a fake. I'm sorry I don't have a real one to compare it to. So number one, when you're looking at this, and this is kind of one of my favorite things, a real Victorinox rescue tool will glow in the dark. This thing does not glow in the dark. The yellow on the real Victorinox, it actually glows. So you can spot it right away if you have any questions whatsoever. Take a bright flashlight, shine it on there for a second, take it off, look at it in the dark. If it doesn't glow, it's a fake. Number two, the kind of thumb hole on the main blade there, this very long shape, it's much more rounded in the real thing. So that's another way to tell that this is a fake right off the bat. He didn't believe me at first when I told him, like, hey, I got to tell you something horrible about your knife. It came with a real box, everything that the real thing comes in. If you look at videos, it just, he got suckered, and he bought this from a store. This wasn't online or anything like that. I did a little bit of research too afterwards. A lot of people ask me why I refuse to shop at AliExpress. They tell me they have some great stuff on there because they support the counterfeit knife industry so much, which is why I won't shop there. I found them on at least 3 different websites. And if you're finding something like this that Victorinox sells for $80, $90 brand new, and all of a sudden you're finding one for $15.99 or 20 bucks brand new, that should be a tip off right there. Let's take a look at this, and you'll see that the engineering on this is not great either compared to the real thing. But let's take a look at the tools that come on it and talk about it in terms of just how the original knife was designed and what it's for and why it's a good rescue tool. Being a Swiss Army knife, it's got a lot of different multifunction tools. So on the reverse side, so just about every Swiss Army knife I've ever seen comes with, a punch that you can use to put through stuff. And you can use this one similarly. You can punch through whatever material you need to. It still has the eyelet hole, so if you wanted to use this to put a thread through something, a heavyweight thread, you can do that. It has a Phillips head screwdriver that you can use to do some general, it doesn't have multiple options, it has the one. And, one tip off that this thing is fake should be, no Swiss Army knife is that hard to raise and lower tools from. They're all pretty smooth. This is a glass breaker, and this is removable on the real thing. So, as this wears out, you can replace it. Now, right now, I don't have a pair of pliers. You use a pair of pliers or a multi-tool to kind of take this thing out and then lock a new one in. And you can find videos on this online if you're interested in seeing how it's done. It's a pretty simple process. But that's an interesting tool because most knives or rescue tools don't have a removable, renewable glass breaker. I've heard people saying a lot of horror stories about the carbide tip on some knives or tactical pens. They come off, they break. This thing, if it ever wears down or breaks, you can put a new one on. And it's as simple as that. The rest of the tools that come on it are very much focused on usability in the real world as a secondary focus, but really they're designed for rescuing, extricating somebody from a vehicle. Victorinox has a promotional video where they show how each one of these tools can be used to get somebody out of a vehicle, you know, somebody in distress. So let's just start over here. Now this is designed very specifically to be used to cut through auto glass. So in the video they have the firefighter with a big gloved hand, by the way, just sort of smash this through the corner of a window. They puncture the window with the glass breaker and then put this through the window. And of course this is all tempered, sealed glass, right? So it doesn't shatter into 1,000 pieces. It stays together as you cut it. But he then cuts his way through the window frame, the glass, and then peels it back. So this is not a saw. You could use it as a saw, but most actual saws for cutting wood have the teeth canted outwards a little bit to kind of move that material out of the way as you're sawing. Now, there's quite a bit of wiggle room. I've seen the videos of the real thing online, and there is not this looseness on it. But this is your tool number one. And again, this is for the cutting through of material to get somebody out of trouble. And take a look at that. That's another good tip-off of the fake. That should not be an issue. It should fall right back into place. This is another cutting blade that would be used for seatbelts. You could also use this to cut through the rubber sealant around a window. But in general, this shape of the blade is really good for getting under clothing, for getting under a seatbelt, something where you don't want to actually cut the victim, right? So notice it's not sharp and it gives you that little protrusion there, so you can get it in contact with the skin without hurting the person, and it gives you that safety measure, and then you can start your cutting. That's a great rescue blade, and that it functions primarily as a rescue blade. Could you do other stuff with this? Sure you can. You can cut rope, you can probably cut a small branch. If you wanted to, you could use it to, you know, cut meat and everything. But so this is actually a very good blade for doing that kind of work, for getting people removed from stuff. The shape of the blade, the way it's designed. And that's kind of, if you remember what we were talking about with the Gerber, they have the same concept there, where there's no sharpened edge at the tip, so you can use that knife to get around skin without hurting somebody. That's not a design flaw like some people thought with the Gerber knife. That's actually the way it's designed. So this is perhaps the most rescue tool on the rescue tool itself. And once again, spotting the fake from the real thing. The real thing would never do that. It would go right back into where it's seated to go. The third tool, and this is not very easily one-handed opening, but on all the videos I saw, it is very easy to open with your thumb. This is your locking bladed knife. So basically it's a liner lock in there. That's the lock itself. And this lock goes all the way over and protects that. So it's actually a pretty good liner lock there. You've got a partial straight, partially serrated blade. It has a little bit of blade play. And I need to defend the guy who owns this knife. He is not a knife expert. He is an EMT that works for one of the county medical services. To him, this is a working tool. He doesn't have a lot of knife knowledge. He had no idea that there's anything wrong with this. You know, he owns this and some kitchen knives. It was the first time I had actually seen this up close. I knew he owned it. I have never messed with it before. Like, he just didn't know. But this is just a general purpose blade that, you know, you can use for a number of things. He's used this a lot, though, on the job. So even though it's a counterfeit, this thing is held up. So I brought a little piece of paper so we can test the edge, because, you know, I like the paper test. Now, this is not a maintained blade. Well, I mean, the serrations work. My poor arm, this is not going to shave. I'm not even going to bother. You get one locking knife, which is interesting that they chose to make this one lock and none of the other ones. I'm not sure why one locks and the others don't. I guess it's just the design choice they went with, but it's a decent blade. I mean, I like the blade shape. It reminds me of a Spyderco, of a Griptilian. He said, you know, experience-wise, the blades always worked out really well for him. It's the tool he uses more than anything else. He has used the curved rescue blade on more than one occasion to, you know, cut somebody out of a seatbelt, to remove clothing when necessary, and he said it's never failed him. It's actually a pretty nice blade. I mean, the design that Victorinox has put together is pretty good. Even, you know, everything being counterfeit and not fitting, it feels good. The design is good. The fourth tool on this side is just a bottle opener. Why does everything need a bottle? And it's funny, in the video they show the bottle opener too, so the firefighter uses all the other tools, and then at the end of the day he pops open a Coca-Cola and has a drink because he's hot and tired. But so you can use this to pry with. In the video they show him prying away the sealant around windshield. You can also use it, as a flathead screwdriver. And they say you can use this thing to strip wires, but I don't know how well that would work. I don't know if I'd want to try that, but it's just, it's a, like I said, it's a Swiss Army knife of rescue tools. And there have been some requests to take a look at this. The blade, by the way, is also replaceable, so that's interesting as well. I don't have another blade to do it with, but I'll probably put a link in the video description so you can check out the Victorinox video and see how it all works. You can remove this blade and replace it with a new one. It's the only one that's removable of the whole thing. And pop a new one in there if you kind of break your blade or put a lot of wear and tear on the blade. So I guess they do intend for this to be the most used blade, and maybe that's why it's the only one that actually locks. So here's the question. Would you guys carry this? Would I carry this? I think that this has value as more than just a rescue knife. Yes, it's rescue-centric, but I think that you could actually make a case that this does more than just rescue. Functionality-wise, I'm kind of more of a fan of the Gerber and this design. The Benchmade Triage is one of my favorite rescue knives. I really like the Gerber. I'm going to be taking a look at the Kershaw Barrage in a little bit. I like the one-handed operation overall of these knives. I like just the way that they function a little bit more. I like the separate cutting tool. I don't know. I guess I like the traditional shape of a knife, but that has nothing to do with the function of it. That's just me and my aesthetics, that. And I'm always the first one to say you shouldn't buy a knife based on how it looks. So I'm being kind of a hypocrite here. I'll admit it. I like a knife with a clip on it. This has a pouch that goes in it. So you're either putting this in a pocket or in a pouch. I wish this had a clip. That would make me feel a lot better about it. But on the other hand, something happens to your blade with this or one of the more traditional rescue knives, you're out of knife. You got to buy a new one. Victorinox was really forward-thinking in having a replaceable blade and a replaceable glass breaker. And for the same size and weight, it's a little tiny bit heavier, you get one blade. You get 3 different blades. You get a screwdriver. This comes with a screwdriver and everything, but you got to go through all the, it's a whole separate attachment and everything else. And if you want the screwdrivers, you're still stuck carrying a pouch. Whereas here, everything's, you're carrying a pouch anyway. And so I think there's a lot of merit behind it. It's just not my style, is all I'm saying. I think somebody who likes Swiss Army, who likes the shape and the functionality would really, really enjoy this knife. I think it's got more functionality in the real world than your standard rescue knife does. So again, I apologize I couldn't show you the real thing. I hate direct counterfeits. I don't mind so much. Like Ganzo, they take a design, but they don't try to pass it off as another company's. They'll copy stuff, but they'll say, listen, this is Ganzo's work, and we did what we did with it. I hate when someone will counterfeit directly and put someone else's logo and someone else's name, because, like I said, my buddy who doesn't know any better, he just thinks that the Victorinox tool comes all loosey-goosey and is not as solid as he should think it is. That's a crime as far as I'm concerned.
Where did he go?
He went inside.
Jump?
You want to jump? Go ahead. Good jump. I just want to make it, perfectly clear. I am not supporting this counterfeit crap. It's just the only one I had to show you guys. And I also wanted to show some of the features that I noticed to kind of identify a fake one from a real one. I have a bunch of questions for the Q&A video, and I'm going to start filming that this weekend. So one more plug for that. Send any other Q&A questions you have, and I've gotten a cool one. I'm not going to say who it was, but somebody asked me, hey, Tupac or Biggie? And I'm going to answer that question right here to questionsfordocp@gmail.com. Also, we're just on the verge of hitting 15,000 subscribers. I'll be honest, I don't know what the contest is going to be yet, but I have a whole mess of things to give away for the actual giveaway. Because I'm going to be moving in a few weeks. I need to make space. So this timing could not be better for me either. So you guys are awesome. I appreciate all of you. I tend to believe that I have some of the best, smartest, and most awesome viewers in all of YouTube. But that's just me. It's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but I'm probably not. But you guys are cool, you guys are awesome, and I'll be back again real soon.